Welcome to the deep dive. We know there's just so much information swirling around out there, and it can be tough getting up to speed quickly on the really vital stuff. So, our job is to cut through that noise for you. Today, we're diving deep into sustainability and specifically ISO 14001 certification. We'll be looking at its impact, particularly on Indian industries.
Yeah, our mission here is really to pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge from everything we've looked at. We want to help you understand why this certification isn't just, some passing trend. It's actually become a strategic imperative for many businesses. So we'll dig into the framework itself, what it actually is, then we'll cover the benefits, and there are layers to this for the business, for employees, even for society. And we've got a great case study to show how it works in the real world.
Absolutely. Get ready for maybe a few aha moments, maybe some surprising facts. We're aiming to give you that shortcut to being properly informed on this. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
So let's kick off with this fundamental shift that's happening. Sustainability. It's not just a corporate buzzword anymore, is it? It feels like it's really become a core business necessity now, especially somewhere like India with its incredibly fast-growing economy.
Oh, absolutely. That's spot on. Indian industries, they're feeling the pressure from, well, multiple angles. There's this increasing need to genuinely reduce their environmental footprint. Plus, you've got government regulations becoming stricter. And critically, customers and investors, their expectations are evolving fast. They want to see eco-friendly practices, real responsibility. It's not just PR anymore.
Right, it's about market relevance, staying competitive. And that's where you mentioned ISO 14001 certification comes in. You called it a game changer almost. How does it actually help companies deal with all these pressures?
Well, it's a game changer because it goes way beyond just, ticking a compliance box.
Yeah.
It really helps organizations embed sustainable thinking deep into every single business process. It's systematic. And by taking that structured approach, they're not just, say, avoiding fines, they're actually building resilience, finding efficiencies, and, positioning themselves to thrive locally, but also compete globally.
Okay, so it's about embedding it into the process. Let's get down to brass tacks then. For listeners who might know other ISO standards, or maybe this is new territory, what exactly is ISO 14001?
So ISO 14001 is basically an environmental management system framework, an EMS.
EMS framework, okay.
Think of it like a blueprint, a structured approach for how a company manages its environmental responsibilities.
Right.
And that immediately raises the question, what does this framework actually do for a business? Well, by setting up this structure, things like setting environmental objectives, putting processes in place to meet them, monitoring how you're doing, and then crucially, always looking to improve it, directly unlocks a whole raft of benefits.
Okay, so we know what it is, this structured EMS framework. But, if I'm a business leader listening, the next question is obviously, what's in it for me? What's the payoff? Because you hinted the benefits go way beyond just being green. They touch lots of different parts of the business.
Exactly. And that's where the real power is, I think.
Sure.
Looking at the key business benefits first, they're pretty tangible. Take cost savings. ISO 14001 forces you to systematically look at everything: energy use, water, raw materials, waste generation.
So it's not just guesswork.
No, it's data-driven. We've seen companies suddenly realize, hang on, we're paying to get rid of this waste when actually it could be recycled or even sold. That leads to real savings, sometimes even new revenue.
Interesting.
Then there's market access.
Yeah.
Increasingly, especially if you want to export to places like the EU, having the certification isn't a nice to have, it's a requirement. It's like a passport to play in certain markets.
Necessity, really.
Pretty much. And of course, regulatory compliance is huge, avoiding fines, legal trouble. But it also pushes companies towards innovation, developing greener products, finding more efficient processes.
Okay, so the business case seems pretty clear: costs, market access, compliance, innovation. But what about the people inside the company? How does implementing something like this affect the employees, their day-to-day?
That's a really important angle. For employees, the benefits are quite significant too. Directly, they often get healthier, safer work environments because the system tackles things like waste management and pollution control right at the source.
Makes sense.
But beyond that, there's often a real boost in employee pride. People genuinely feel better about working for a company they see as responsible and forward-thinking. And the process usually involves training, right? So employees learn about environmental issues, sustainable practices. It empowers them. They become part of the solution, not just bystanders.
That's great for morale and culture. So we've covered business benefits, employee benefits. Let's zoom out even further. What's the bigger picture impact? How does this collective effort by companies affect society, especially in a place like India?
Well, on the societal level, the gains are really substantial. Think about it. Reduced air pollution, cleaner water, less soil contamination from industrial activities.
Direct environmental improvement.
Exactly.
Yep.
It also promotes more responsible use of natural resources, which is vital everywhere, but especially in a rapidly developing economy. And each company that gets certified and genuinely improves its performance is directly contributing to India meeting its larger climate goals, its carbon reduction targets. It adds up.
Okay, so the framework and the benefits are compelling, but you mentioned it's systematic, structured,
Yeah.
which sounds great on paper. Actual implementation, though, that can be tricky, right? Complex.
Oh, absolutely. Implementation can definitely be complex. That's why navigating it effectively is key.
So why is getting expert help, like from consultants, often so critical here? What are the risks if companies try to just, you know, wing it?
Well, the risks are pretty significant. Without proper guidance, companies can easily waste months, maybe longer, just spinning their wheels with trial and error. They
Right.
might miss key compliance clauses in the standard, which means failing the audit later on. That's costly and demoralizing.
Right.
Or they might create this incredibly complicated documentation system that nobody can actually use day to day. It becomes shelfware. So an expert helps avoid those pitfalls. It's not just about getting a certificate. It's about building an EMS that actually works for that specific business and delivers real improvements.
Okay, so a good consultant isn't just checking boxes. They're providing
Yeah.
an end-to-end solution. Based on what we've seen, that typically involves starting with a gap analysis, right?
Mhm.
Really figuring out where the company stands versus the standard.
Exactly. A deep dive diagnostic first.
Then designing a custom EMS that fits the business, not a one-size-fits-all template.
Crucial. It has to be practical.
Followed by thorough employee training, doing an internal audit like a practice run,
A dress rehearsal.
and finally providing audit support when the external auditors come in, making sure the whole thing is compliant and usable.
Precisely. It's
Okay.
about embedding it effectively.
Let's make this more concrete. We looked at a specific example, didn't we? A textile manufacturing company down in Andhra Pradesh. Tell us about their journey. What were things like before they went for ISO 1401?
Right, this company. Well, before, they were facing some serious challenges.
Yeah.
Their wastewater treatment was outdated, wasn't meeting standards, so they were getting hit with non-compliance fines. And it was actually causing some bad press locally, too. Not good for their reputation.
Ouch.
And their operational costs were through the roof because they had huge amounts of fabric scrap just going straight to landfill. They were paying to get rid of it.
Hmm.
And honestly, employee engagement on anything related to sustainability was basically zero. It was seen as, management's problem. Bit of a
Yeah.
wake-up call situation, really.
Okay, so that's the before. What happened after they implemented ISO 14001 with some help? What did that transformation look like?
The results were pretty dramatic, actually. First off, they managed a 35% reduction in their waste disposal costs. That's a tangible saving.
35%. Wow.
Yeah. And they achieved full compliance, not just with local rules, but also with the really tough requirements from their international buyers. That opened up market access they were struggling with before.
Huge.
But maybe the most impressive part was the internal shift. Those employees who were disengaged, they started forming green teams, actively looking for ways to improve things on the factory floor. They came up with new ways to lay out patterns, leading to almost zero waste fabric cutting in some areas. That came from the ground up.
That's fantastic. So they went from fines and disengagement to cost savings and employee-led initiatives. So stepping back, what does a transformation like that really signify for a business considering this path?
I think what it really underscores is that ISO 14001, when done right, is so much more than just getting a certificate to hang on the wall. If you connect it back to the bigger picture strategy, it's fundamentally about building a sustainable competitive advantage.
Right.
It's about creating a system that delivers those tangible results, the cost savings, the market access, the compliance, but also builds a much stronger, more resilient brand reputation.
Exactly. In a crowded market, especially in India, having that certification signals something powerful. It tells investors, clients, the local community that this business is serious about responsible practices, not just profits. It becomes a real differentiator, a mark of credibility.
Absolutely. A strategic tool.
Okay, before we wrap things up, let's quickly tackle a few common questions that you, listening, might have rattling around. First one, is ISO 14001 just for the big corporations?
And no, definitely not. That's a common misconception. Small and medium-sized businesses, SMEs, they can absolutely implement it effectively. The standard itself is designed to be scalable.
Good to know. Okay, second question. Does it always require massive upfront investment? is it prohibitively expensive?
Well, there is an investment, naturally, but the cost is scalable depending on the company's size and complexity. And what we consistently find is that the savings generated from using fewer resources, cutting waste, avoiding those penalties, often outweigh that initial cost over time. It frequently pays for itself, sometimes quite quickly.
So potentially a net positive financially. And one last very practical question. How long does the certification process usually take?
Typically, you're looking at somewhere between 3 to 6 months to get certified. But that really depends on where the company is starting from, how mature their existing environmental practices are, how ready they are. A well-prepared company can definitely move faster.
3 to 6 months. Okay. Good benchmark. So let's try and summarize our deep dive today. The core message seems to be that ISO 14001 certification isn't just about tweaking things. It can fundamentally transform how a business operates. It shifts the mindset from just reacting to problems to proactively managing environmental impact.
It really can. It's about, yes, saving costs and improving compliance, which are crucial, but it's also about building that solid, verifiable reputation for sustainability leadership. And it sets up that framework for never standing still, for continuous improvement.
So here's a final thought for you, our listener, to mull over. Think about how integrating sustainability, not viewing it merely as a compliance hurdle, but embracing it as a core strategic differentiator, could potentially unlock unforeseen opportunities, maybe new markets, greater efficiency, and build real long-term resilience for any organization operating in today's incredibly dynamic global landscape. What potential does that hold